You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Welcome everybody to the Four Corners, brought to you by the Official Wrestling Museum. We are your host. I am Angel, and I'm joined by the Official Wrestling Museum's Hall of Famer,
Lowlife.
And we are here this week. First and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you.
And
yeah, Lowlife has a dependent.
yeah, it's nice come tax season for you. And then we also had June 13th for Pro Wrestling Day, our first anniversary of it here in the state of Rhode Island. If you scan that QR code, we can make it national, folks. We're really pushing for that. Just to say thank you to all the professional wrestlers and everybody that's a part of the industries for all the past years. You know what I mean? So today's show is a pretty interesting show. We're going to talk ECW. ECW. And we are picking our four that we think.
Yeah. Basically, when you think of ECW, who do you think about? What acts do you think of? You know, not the best, not the worst, but when you think of ECW, hey, this is what I think of. This is who comes to mind.
All right, and I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I think.
Don't steal who I have.
Well, I mean, I think the thing
I think
is,
it's gonna be a lot of similar.
I do, but I think there's about 8 to 10 names. So I think if one is stolen, you can always bounce to one of those other ones. I'm pretty sure we'll have some similar names.
Yeah.
But I know, like, for example, the four I have, I know I can go to another four.
Yep. Same.
So for me, if I think of ECW, the first guy I'm going to think of is New Jack. I think, you know, New Jack would not exist in any other company on a mainstream basis. You know, he was around before ECW, but ECW, it was like New Jack's home. And like, would he have ever worked in WWF or WCW? Never.
Do you remember, so Primal Conflict came to an end and they did P3 because Jimmy Payne caught on fire?
Yeah.
In Nemesis. So then they had to change it to P3. The main event for the last show was Jose Perez against New Jack.
Was this in the bottles?
The bottle spot.
Yeah.
And they ended up turning it into a lumberjack match, and it was a beer bottle, I don't think they called it a beer bottle match, but it was something bottle match. I forget what their name was. And they turned it into a lumberjack match, and it wasn't to keep the wrestlers in the ring, it was actually to protect Jose Perez, because New Jack, for 2 weeks prior to that, was calling his house and making all kinds of threats on his answer machines, to his wife, to his kids, and saying that, you know, have fun with your dad now because he's going 6 feet under. And he was so involved. When he got to the arena that day, he was mouthing off. You know, he was trying to get to Jose. And, you know, Jose, I'll give him his props. He stuck his ground. But you could tell he was shooken up. Like, he didn't know what was going on because this was definitely out of the realm of the magic that we were talking about on one of the shows, right? And they ended up doing the match, and the match went pretty good. It was a typical Jose, typical New Jack match. Then we got into the locker room, and we were like, all right, well, this is where everything's going to really explode from New Jack. Goes over, oh, man, that was so great, this, that, whatever. He's, like, talking up the storm and everything. He's like, man, but see, that's how you do it. You work the families, you work everybody for weeks on end. You get everybody to believe. And, like, you could see at that time that Jose was, like, relieved, but then you could see, like, the, like, aggression coming on his face. Like, yo, you tormented my family for all this time. You know what I mean? It was definitely, like, a whole chapter of a book to write about was that one incident. It was crazy.
There's so many stories about New Jack, like throwing Vic. This wasn't even in the ECW. Threw Vic Grimes off the scaffolding from, New Jack started doing the dives, under the influence of a lot of things. And then after ECW closed down, when he started doing the shows with us, some independent shows around the country, like he was showing up with the Wolverine claws, or he was showing up with crossbows. Like New Jack was made for ECW, so that's why he's gonna be my first pick.
And you know what? And I remember us in the locker rooms for Primal, and here he is coming in our stuff, and like, that's from him. Like, is this guy gonna do this stuff in the locker room? Because he was just known for going off doing stuff. And if you ever on his bad side, forget it, you were gone. So if we're gonna talk ECW, I'm gonna have to throw his name out there, Paul Heyman.
Okay.
And
obviously,
you know what I mean. But Paul Heyman.
It's funny as I wouldn't have even thought to say him for some reason.
To me, he not only made the company, but the iconic images of him in his jacket, the headpiece, the phone, like everything he had was selling what that company was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You knew it wasn't your typical WCW, WWF, WWE, whatever. It wasn't those typical companies. This was something else, and they were there to be different, to drive. And I think if it wasn't for him on camera like that, ECW might not have had that full momentum. Like, look at us with, Primal Conflict. Primal Conflict was very much ECW, you know what I mean? And it very well got over with the fans because there wasn't no hardcore going on at all, anywhere. And we were bringing it to them. But who do we have as, like, our symbol piece? It was Studley Steve.
Yeah.
And nothing against Studley Steve, but he wasn't hardcore. He never did a thing in hardcore in his life. You know what I mean? So when he was out there, people were like, oh, wait, what is he saying? It wasn't believable because he was a wrestler. A solid-looking wrestler. Paul Heyman wasn't that solid-looking promoter role that you see. You know what I mean? He was different. So, yeah, Paul Heyman.
For me, the second person I would think of would be the Sandman. Again.
Off to Never, Never Land.
Yeah, I mean, now I've never been there for the entrance. People say that if that entrance at ECW Arena was amazing, coming out to Metallica. But, again, Sandman, would he have worked in any other company the way he worked in ECW? And the answer is no.
We've seen examples of that too.
Well, I mean, they've taken bits and pieces of him, like Stone Cold drinking the beers and stuff. I mean, definitely ripped off of Sandman. And, I mean, kendo sticks and wrestling ripped off of Sandman. So, I mean, you've seen bits and pieces of Sandman here and there, but you've not seen the Sandman as a whole. Sandman as a whole, they've tried. They had him in ECW. He didn't last too long. And then they did the draft and he went to Raw and he was gone shortly after that.
Yeah.
So Sandman is a guy who solely is one of those acts that, I mean, he did it. He went to WCW as Hardcore Hack. It just wasn't the same. He wasn't the Sandman.
We had him for Primal, one of the shows, and Rock was supposed to, I don't know if it was Rock or Steve, Studley Steve. It was one of the two was supposed to give him some beers. And I guess they took too long and they didn't have him. So he went out. He came back with 2 30 racks. And that was about 45 minutes before the show started. By the time the show started, those racks were gone by him. He didn't share. He just kept downing them. And I hate giving away kayfabe. I really, really do. But in the old Club Stars, you had the dance stage, you had the ring, you had where the crowd was, you had another dance stage because it was a nightclub for females. You had your bar area, then you had your walkway area, and then you went down, and that's the way you came in. I was down where they came in. I knew everything that was happening in that match because Sandman had no volume control whatsoever. And it was like, oh my God, this guy is so wasted.
There's a lot of stories about Sandman. Yeah. Him open up what do you want? Him open up a suitcase. What do you want? And awesome guy though. And I remember him throwing a can of beer out and you taking it and taping it up, putting it in a cup. I used to be like, what are you doing that?
That's still in the museum.
Oh man.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna go with somebody else, I'm gonna go with Taz.
Okay.
All right, and Taz always stuck out to me. I always like, oh man, a little Tasmanian devil, that's so cute, right? And at that time, Looney Tunes was really big on TV. You know what I mean? McDonald's came out with the Looney Tune line, so I was able to relate it, right? But Taz was a little different. He was that suplex machine. He was that wrestler. He was able to go out there and drive that power and that stigma from a little guy stance. And to me, that was really impressive in a world of where it just looked like it was just barbed wires and kendo sticks.
At the time, UFC was just kind of coming into play, so he was different. He was kind of that UFC wrestler, that same style.
You know what? I never thought of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul Heyman, you know, when you talked about Paul Heyman, he always had the, I guess the term would be like finger on the pulse.
Yep.
Like he knew what was going to be big. And yeah, I think that Taz was the only guy around at that time that was kind of like that. It wasn't until Kurt Angle went to WWF that they had a guy like that. But Taz, you know, small guy too. So he was different. And definitely when you think of ECW, I mean, he's one of the names you think of. Another guy that I'm picking here, I think also, he's bounced around, but I think he had his best success in ECW, especially creative-wise, was Raven. I think,
Okay.
I mean, he had a run in WCW as like top of the mid-card, very bottom of the top level, but creatively, I think that his best work was in ECW. Him and the Sandman had that great feud. Him and Tommy Dreamer had a great feud. I think it's crazy to think here this guy comes in, he was just Johnny Polo, and now he's Raven. And people knew, but he got that Raven character over despite everyone knowing he was Johnny Polo.
Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. Raven really helped, and he was. If you thought ECW, if you were building a hardcore company and you see all these guys out in the sea, Raven character is somebody you want to grab.
Yeah.
And he really brought it to life. So this is getting to be tough because we only have 2 more choices.
Well, you have 2, right?
Well, me, and you have 1.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and I'm like, I know.
And there's some
2
really
picks I
good
want,
one.
and I'm like, I hope he picks one of them.
That's the thing, because I got one that I don't think you're gonna go with. Which, if you did, it's definitely worth saying. But then I got a group of like 4 that really all should be mentioned because that's what you think of. So it's hard to like pull out. So I'm gonna go with Tommy Dreamer.
Okay, Tommy Dreamer was one of my picks.
Okay.
So because you picked him,
Yeah.
and now you said a group, I think that we have the same last pick too. So go ahead
So
with Tommy Dreamer.
yeah,
definitely.
Tommy Dreamer was just that innovative offense, right? He was that normal-looking Joe Smo. That's what it came to me. Could do hardcore, could do matches, could sell, has the mind of what he's doing. Used to come with a gear bag, was his suitcase. Remember that? Yeah. There was a metal suitcase. That was his gear bag. It was cool seeing that. Anyway, he worked a few shows with us, great guy. But he could do it all. And he was just that, it was like that piece between, like say, Taz and a Sandman. You know what I mean? Or a Taz and a New Jack. It was that Tommy Dreamer that connected both those styles together.
I think Tommy Dreamer, somebody put, was like the heart and soul of ECW. Too.
Yeah, and he really took everything.
Yeah, I mean the guy. I've said many times, I love Tommy Dreamer. I just love him, just what he stands for. I think his time is done. I don't like seeing him now, but Tommy Dreamer and ECW goes hand in hand. So I'm curious now. I think I want to let you pick your group because I'm curious to see if it's the same as me, and if it is, I also have someone else I could pick too. I'm pretty sure it's the same group.
I have the group, so when I meant group, I have 4 names I was putting together that I wanted to pick out of.
Oh, okay.
In it is kind of a group.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So Tommy was one out of it. I think the other name that I have way over here that could be associated in this group, I think I want to give him recognition in a Spike Dudley.
So just Spike Dudley? Because I
Just
thought you were
Spike.
going to say the Dudley Boys.
Well, that was going to be my honorable mention, was the Dudley Boys, for not just the whole family,
Yeah.
and Chubby Dudley, Fisher Rust Museum Hall of Famer, But the Bubba Ray and Devon, it's ECW.
Yeah.
But Spike Dudley took so many. He was like the Darby Allin back then. He took so many bumps to put people over, and then even when he came out into WWE, he took that bad bump that he lost 90% of his use of his arm.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So it was one of the table spots to the outside. So I think Spike, and he was a school teacher.
Right.
So he would take time off for teaching to come just to get thrown around, it was for the love of the sport. So I think I needed to give him his props or something like that, and a Rhode Islander as well.
So you're not picking all the Dudleys, you're just picking Spike Dudley?
I think I want to go with Spike, even though all Dudleys definitely fall in
But
that.
now I have two names I could pick. So the last two I was like Dudley Boyz, Tommy Dreamer. But then I'm like, there's another guy I think that could be in that spot. And then when you said Dudley Boyz, I'm like, okay, good, that gets me off the hook. But now you're not saying the Dudley Boyz, so now it's a toss-up between the Dudley Boyz and the franchise Shane Douglas for me.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, okay, which one do I want to pick? I think I want to pick the franchise Shane Douglas simply for the fact that when he won that NWA title, he threw it down and he declared himself the ECW champion.
Yeah.
ECW, I mean, doesn't happen without that. Yeah, it might happen, but that kind of set it ablaze right then and there. And Shane Douglas was the top guy for the first 3 or 4 years of
That
ECW.
is true. So the Dudley Boyz themselves is definitely a huge honorable mention,
Yeah.
and they can definitely be on, anybody's four corners of anything. For so many levels.
I thought that they were going to be on there, but you only went with Spike.
I
You could have cheated and said all of them.
I could have, but I think Spike, I don't think he gets the recognition that he really deserves, you know what I mean, for the bumps that he takes.
Yeah.
And being one of the little guys back in the day, and taking all those crazy bumps, you know what I mean? Like, it takes a toll on your body. Another honorable mention that either one of us didn't bring up, which is kind of surprising, but again, like you said, there's a big group of names. There's RVD or Sabu.
Right.
Those
Right.
two names are two
Well, that's
huge
the thing.
names.
Had we picked
that
5 each,
go right.
they would be in it, right? RVD, longest reigning
Was
TV
huge
champ.
names and that really got
Terry Funk
ECW.
Terry Funk is another.
Another one.
Balls and Axel.
Yeah. There's definitely
Candido.
yeah.
There's
Another
a lot.
Hall of Fame in the
Francine.
Official Wrestling Museum.
Yeah. There's a lot of. I think the number one honorable mention would have been the Dudley Boyz, and I think RVD and Sabu would be right there next to
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely.
So like if you were making like a second group, the 3 of them would be in it, and
Absolutely.
then I don't know, you probably put in Balls or Axel maybe, or I tend to think of ECW as more of the original guys, more as opposed to the later guys like a Carino or a Mike Awesome or Jerry Lynn, those type of guys.
Yeah.
So we still got. I don't know. We still got. Well, we can make a 4 corners with what we have.
And this is going to be interesting to make this 4 corners too. And remember, you guys can send in to us too to let us know who your 4 is that you will put in, and if you agree with us. So my list today was Paul Heyman, Taz.
I think Paul Heyman has to go in. I didn't even think of him.
Okay.
I think Paul Heyman has to go in because without Paul Heyman, the ECW, it would have been there maybe, but it wouldn't have been what it became. And maybe without Paul Heyman, it would still be around too because he's a bad businessman. But I think Paul Heyman's got to go into one of those corners.
All right. I'm definitely, seeing that I picked him, I'm definitely for him. So I had Paul Heyman, which is a lock-in now, Taz, Tommy Dreamer, and Spike Dudley. You said Shane Douglas,
Raven,
Sandman, and New Jack. So
I like Paul Heyman and Tommy Dreamer from your side. And And if I was picking 2 off of my side, not that that's what we have to do, but
no, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
because I think Taz. So for me, I think like Spike. It's funny because you said he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Well, I don't think he's going to get the recognition he deserves here because I wouldn't throw him in that.
To put him in our final group,
Yeah.
compare, I don't think it's there, but for what he took, absolutely.
Honestly, I think Raven and Sandman would be. I think I would pick Heyman, Dreamer, Raven, and Sandman. I think that those really are the four. Like New Jack is New Jack, but I think that a lot of people might not know New Jack too. So, at least with Raven, Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer, they've been to other places, and people, the lore of ECW has grown with them through the other places, and people can go, oh, they're from ECW. New Jack, he only has that ECW niche. And I know that's what we're saying, is like when you think of ECW.
Right.
But I think that, New Jack was never a top guy. He was probably one of those special attractions in ECW. So for me, I would say Sandman and Raven, but I'm curious what you would say.
I'm definitely locked for Paul Heyman. Sandman, I would put in. He had some memorable spots. Not the most solid worker in the world. Definitely entertaining. Definitely got the crowd into it.
Another guy we didn't mention also, Cactus Jack.
Oh yeah,
Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. But go ahead.
I think Tommy Dreamer was that middle person, like I explained. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the sense of Raven and New Jack, I'm kind of pulled on that because, to me, I think Raven had to build himself up.
I think what Raven...
Where New Jack was what ECW was that violence.
Yeah. Well, I think what Raven, too, is that was Heyman's favorite character. And I think Raven, you could tell much more stories with. New Jack was New Jack. But it's kind of one-dimensional in the sense of what you're going to get with him is just a match with a bunch of Palanda. But New Jack, with Raven, you're going to get that ECW storytelling as well.
That's true. Yeah, we can. Yeah, maybe Raven.
Because their stories also were very intricate,
Yeah, that is true. And New Jack would go in the business for himself. You never knew what you were getting. And granted, it was a hardcore company, but you still wanted some kind of knowledge of what was going on because at the end of the day, you got to answer these questions, right? So we're saying Heyman, Sandman, Tommy, and then Raven.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I think that. Yeah. I think to me that's who I would think of, and then the next round would be like Taz, New Jack.
Well, now remember though, we also have RVD, Sandman.
I think
Dudley
they would be
Boys.
in the next. I think they would be in the next.
There's definitely, you can't sell the Dudley Boys storyline short.
No.
That was really a storyline that was so far-fetched.
They got those crowds.
That got so over. Yeah. I mean, Joe Gertner is another name.
ECW
it's a Hall of Famer.
Joey Styles.
Yeah.
Even, you can't not think of
Bill Alfonso.
You can't not think of ECW without Joey Styles. So I mean, there was plenty, but again, you can only pick 4 each.
Exactly. And you know what's cool too is look at us. We're here, and a lot of people will, even to today, that say, well, ECW really wasn't anything. But look at how much we could talk about and get into. That's not even going into depth of any of it. It's to really just what they were able to do and what they were able to give to us.
They got watered down towards the end, but...
I think it did because of networks and stuff, and I think, he was trying to do whatever he could do to keep it afloat, and I think once he knew, but, he said even in his Hall of Fame speech, it was a point, I was 6 months behind on paydays, and these guys are like, what am I going to do? How am I, or he even said in his shoot interviews, what am I going to do? I need you to jump off a building. These guys are coming in. Hey, boss, you want me to jump off this building today for you?
BWO was another act that, that was in there, FBI.
Blue Meanie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well,
I mean, there's a lot. There's so much stuff that was, and then towards the end, the triple threat. There was just Lance Storm, another one.
Yeah. Even Just Incredible was solid during that time frame.
Just incredible. Another guy that
Impact
they really made a
players.
star out of, Aldo Montoya, and they made him a star. And that was a struggle at first. I mean, his first real big feud or storyline was against Great Sasuke, and he beat Sasuke twice, and that's huge. Number one, that's huge to do, but for Sasuke to agree to that, you know, that made him, that put him on a trajectory. So yeah, I mean, there's so many guys that you know, Dusty Rhodes came in, Terry Funk, of course, we mentioned.
Yep.
I know Scott Hall eventually came in. I know there was issues with that.
Even the Bushwhackers were there one day.
Yeah, Cousin Luke and Cousin Butch,
Yeah.
Dudleys. Yeah, everyone was a Dudley. So, I mean, ECW, it was very, you know, you can go back and watch that stuff. To some people, it might not hold up well. They're not going to understand it. But where we've watched it, it was good stuff. I mean, you can throw on any pay-per-view, and for the most part, the pay-per-view, I mean, it was pretty good, but it's also like there's no structure. The first match bleeds into the second match, which bleeds into the third match.
So you know what it kind of reminds me of? Is if AEW got a 1 o'clock in the morning time spot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's basically AEW's doing all this hardcore stuff. Everything bleeds into each other. There's no storylines. There's a whole bunch of people. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the background or anything. Or if you just go to their live events, you're there till 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, if you guys like our 4, let us know. If you don't like our 4 and there's somebody else, let us know. We do have some of your picks you guys have been sending in. In a couple of weeks, I think if we end the show a little earlier, we're going to start reading off some of them from just past shows, just for some fun. So we thank you guys for doing that. Make sure you check out all our different shows this week. We're Off the Ropes, Figures Are Us, Hot Tag.
Here's a special one. How about when you think of ECW, just the ECW arena?
Yeah.
No?
Well, how about ECW? You know what I mean?
The crowd.
The crowd. Remember the cheers being thrown into the ring?
Yeah.
That was insane.
The crowd could be just a character in itself.
Oh my God! Yeah,
Batman.
it is. Yeah, ECW was something special, 100%, which could very well be Attitude Era. You know what I mean? Some have said that it came right from that. But
yeah, no doubt.
thank you guys so much for tuning in. Because without you guys, you know, we can't be here each and every week, and we really enjoy it. For all your wrestling needs, check out the officialwrestlingmuseum.com. Take a Smile Up Challenge. Just like that. Spread more smiles and hate in the world. Scan that QR code. Let's make the Pro Wrestling Day a National Pro Wrestling Day. And you know what they say?
Come back next week and see what we throw into the corner.
Take care, guys.